Imagine, just for a second, that you're sitting at your desk. It's like a completely normal Tuesday morning.
Right?
You've got your coffee, you're clearing out your inbox, and you see an email you've been expecting from, a regular vendor.
Happens every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And attached to it is a totally normal looking file, an
Oh,
invoice. So you double click it, it opens up, you look at the numbers, you close it, and you just move on with your day.
Yeah, you don't even think about it.
You really don't. Nothing flashes on your screen. There's no warning siren. There's no pop-up telling you that your computer has just been compromised. But in that exact moment, without a single outward sign, your entire system has been hijacked.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything on your hard drive, your passwords, your camera, it's all completely exposed.
It's basically the ultimate digital nightmare, right?
Right.
The invisible breach.
Yeah.
We're talking about the kind of attack where everything looks perfectly fine on the surface, but underneath the entire foundation is just quietly caved in.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we're exploring today. We're pulling from an incredibly urgent cybersecurity report that just dropped on April 10th, 2026.
A very recent one.
Super recent. It's written by Diego Macasterlin, and the title really says it all. It's called Adobe Reader 0 Day. Your PDFs are no longer safe.
Yeah, that title is definitely a wake-up call.
It is. Now, to give you some context on the absolute chaos right now, Diego's report chronicles what looks like, a terrifying week of hacks across the board. I mean, it reads like a horror novel for IT departments.
It really does. It's been a mess.
We're talking about everyday cookies being used to hijack entire Linux servers. There are GitHub accounts getting absolutely hammered by something called glassworm malware. Chrome is pushing out emergency updates to fight this aggressive cookie theft. And TikTok business accounts are just under complete siege.
Yeah, it's a bloodbath out there. It's been a highly volatile period, to put it mildly.
All right.
The sheer volume of vulnerabilities being exploited simultaneously across completely different platforms, I mean, from web browsers to social media infrastructure, is staggering.
Yeah.
It feels like threat actors are probing every possible weakness all at once.
It really does. But as fascinating and frankly terrifying as all those other breaches are, our mission for this deep dive is to focus purely on the most insidious threat in that entire report.
Okay, let's get into it.
We're going to look at how the everyday PDF, which is probably the most boring file format in the world, has been weaponized against fully updated systems. And, more importantly, we're going to break down exactly what you must do to protect yourself right now.
Crucial stuff.
Yeah. So, okay, let's unpack this because I think the core issue here is how we all mentally categorize our files, right?
Absolutely.
We treat PDFs like they're laminated digital documents, read-only, untouchable. You can't edit them easily. They look the same on every single screen, and they just they feel like a passive piece of digital paper.
What's fascinating here is how hackers are currently exploiting that deeply ingrained psychological trust.
Oh, totally.
We view PDFs as static objects, like the digital equivalent of a printed flyer handed to you on the sidewalk. You look at it, and that's the end of the interaction.
Right.
But a PDF is not just an image of text. It's actually a highly complex container. It can hold images, text, interactive forms, multimedia, and crucially code that can execute complex commands.
Wow, so it's a lot more than just paper.
Exactly. When you open a PDF, you're not just viewing an image. You're basically asking your computer to run a piece of software. Hackers are banking on the fact that you don't realize you're running software.
Wait, if my computer thinks this is just a passive piece of paper, what actually triggers the code? Like, how does the trap snap shut when I click the file?
Well, the user action is the trigger.
Because Diego's report pinpoints the exact moment this started coming to light. There was a specific patient 0, right? A file named invoice540.pdf.
That's the one.
And it was spotted back in late November 2025 by security researchers at a firm called XPMON.
Right, so EXPMN was monitoring a public security database. You can think of these databases like massive digital quarantine zones where suspicious files get uploaded automatically by various security programs around the world for analysis.
Like a holding cell for sketchy files?
Exactly. Threat hunters comb through these databases looking for anomalies. And EXPMO researchers noticed that underneath the surface of this very standard-looking business document, invoice540.pdf, there was a highly complex trap waiting to be sprung.
So what did they actually see when they looked under the hood? I mean, what was it doing?
They found that when a user clicks to open it, the file doesn't just render the text of a bill. The act of opening it silently executes a string of messy, deeply hidden code.
And it doesn't ask for any permissions.
None. Without asking for permission, this code immediately begins to root through your private files. It actively maps out your system, gathering sensitive information to send back to the attackers, all while the user is simply staring at a boring invoice, completely unaware.
That is wild.
Yeah, there are no spinning wheels, no warning lights. It's totally seamless.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why an invoice? I mean, hackers are brilliant coders. They're creating these incredibly sophisticated, invisible traps that can bypass enterprise security while use such mundane, boring bait.
Because it works.
But if I'm a hacker trying to steal sensitive data, wouldn't I promise them, I don't know, a free vacation or a lottery win to guarantee they click?
Well, that's where the psychology of social engineering comes into play. The mundane nature of invoice540.pdf is the very thing that makes it an invisibility cloak.
How so?
Think about the target audience here. Office workers process these kinds of documents all day long, completely on autopilot. It's pure muscle memory. If you get an email with a flashy subject line promising $1 million, your guard immediately goes up.
Yeah, I'd definitely delete that immediately.
Right, you've been trained through years of corporate seminars to spot that as a phishing attempt. But an invoice, that's just Tuesday morning.
Just another chore.
Exactly. It's an administrative chore you want to get off your desk. The attackers understand that the most effective way into a secure system isn't necessarily to batter down the digital firewall. It's much easier to simply have an employee casually open the front door because they think the person knocking is just the mail carrier dropping off a package.
Wow.
So the attack relies just as much on human habit and our desire to just grind through our to-do list as it does on the malicious code itself.
They're literally weaponizing our productivity.
Precisely.
They know we're moving too fast to question an invoice, but knowing that a human user will inevitably click on that boring file, we have to talk about what happens next. Why do the computer's built-in defenses completely fail to stop the file once it's open?
That's the real technical mystery here.
Right, because everyone has security software. Adobe Reader itself has major safety measures built right in, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Adobe Reader operates using a widely adopted security concept called a sandbox.
Which is essentially a digital quarantine zone, right?
Sort of. Adobe essentially isolates the document. The idea is that when Adobe Reader opens a file, it places it inside this restricted, isolated environment, the sandbox.
Okay, makes sense.
The program is allowed to play with its own toys inside the box to render the text, the fonts, and the images. But it's strictly forbidden from reaching outside that box to touch the rest of your computer system.
So it's trapped.
In theory.
Yeah.
It physically shouldn't be able to grab your system files, access your operating system, or look at your passwords.
But this specific attack, this invoice540.pdf, somehow gets out.
It does. And this is where the term zero-day becomes critical. This exploit is a zero-day vulnerability.
Which honestly always sounds like a term from a cheesy espionage thriller, but in cybersecurity, it's basically the absolute worst-case scenario.
It really is. It's the industry term for a flaw that the software creators themselves, in this case, Adobe, didn't even know existed.
Hence the 0 days notice.
Exactly. 0 days have passed since the vendor learned of the vulnerability. That means there's absolutely no patch, no update, no official fix available. The creators are entirely blind to it.
And researchers found this out pretty quickly.
Yes. Top researchers, like Haifei Li, who have been analyzing this specific threat, discovered just how clever this exploit really is.
Because it doesn't just smash through the sandbox walls with brute force, does it?
Not at all. That would make way too much noise and trigger alarms. Instead, the malicious code inside the document turns Adobe's own legitimate features against it.
Like an inside job.
Exactly. PDFs have built-in trusted API calls. These are internal tools designed to do legitimate things, like check which fonts you have installed to display the document correctly, or process interactive form data.
Right, normal PDF stuff.
Normal stuff. But this exploit takes those highly trusted internal tools and repurposes them to quietly query the system's hardware, determine the user's physical location, and scan installed programs.
So it's essentially like a burglar breaking into your house, but instead of bringing their own lockpicks or crowbars, they just use the spare keys you left on the kitchen counter to open all your safes.
That's a great way to put it. The burglar is already inside the house, and they're using the homeowner's own security tools to disable the alarms and empty the vault.
That is terrifying.
And this raises an important question. How much faith should we actually be putting in our antivirus software? We tend to view our antivirus as this impenetrable shield, but traditional antivirus programs operate fundamentally on a basis of recognition.
Right, like a digital most wanted poster.
Exactly like that. They maintain a massive database of known threats. When a file comes in, the antivirus checks its signature against the posters. If it matches, it blocks it.
But a 0-day.
Right. A zero-day vulnerability, by definition, isn't on the poster yet. It's an invisible, entirely new threat. Therefore, your antivirus looks right at this incredibly dangerous system mapping PDF, sees absolutely nothing it recognizes as malicious, and just waves it right on through to your inbox.
That is deeply unsettling. I mean, the digital cage is bypassed from the inside using trusted tools. The guard dog is asleep because it doesn't recognize the scent of the intruder. And the user is just sitting there sipping coffee looking at a fake bill.
A perfect storm.
So if they broke in using our own keys, who is actually doing this and why? Because Diego's report details exactly who these attackers are targeting.
Yeah, following the digital breadcrumbs, a security analyst known as G7W, if you're RA, has been tracking the deployment of these malicious PDFs.
G7WRO. Okay, what did they find?
By looking purely at the raw data and the coding environment, their findings point to a very specific origin and target set. Many of these rigged PDFs are actually written in Russian.
And the lures they're using aren't just generic invoices for everyone, right? They pivot to highly specific bait.
They do. G7W ARM's team found that the attackers are using news regarding the Russian oil and gas industry as their primary lures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're taking real current events, fluctuations in global energy prices, and wrapping their malicious code in documents that appear to be high-level briefings or strategic updates on these geopolitical topics.
Which tells us a lot about who they want opening these files. I mean, if the bait is a detailed, complex report on Russian oil and gas infrastructure, the intended victim isn't an everyday consumer buying shoes online.
Exactly. By using these highly specific geopolitical and energy sector lures, the attackers are clearly aiming at government officials, energy executives, and international political analysts.
You big fish.
The people who would naturally need to read a 40-page document about global energy trends.
Right. And when one of these executives opens that fake briefing, the trap springs. And the report mentions this process where the PDF starts phoning home once it's open.
Yes, phoning home is a critical step.
But if I'm just looking at a file in Adobe Reader, I haven't opened Chrome or Safari. How is a standalone file reaching out to the internet without triggering a massive firewall alert?
Because the firewall trusts Adobe Reader.
Oh, of course.
Once the PDF uses those internal tools to gather preliminary information about the victim, their location, their hardware, their network setup, it leverages Adobe Reader's legitimate internet access privileges to silently reach out to a remote server located at the specific IP address.
So the firewall just waves it through.
It's bypassing the firewall because the firewall thinks it's just Adobe checking for a software update or verifying a digital signature. The file is basically sending a signal back to the attacker saying, I'm in. I've successfully infiltrated a target system.
And that initial ping is when things go from bad to much, much worse.
Because that initial contact is a two-way street. It allows the remote server to send back new instructions directly into the open connection.
So they can send more malware.
Exactly. While security researchers haven't seen the absolute full extent of the damage yet, they are confident the final goal is complete administrative control. By phoning home, the PDF can download a secondary payload.
And what does the payload do?
That payload allows the hackers to actively delete files, harvest password vaults, or even turn on and watch through the victim's webcam in real time.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the everyday listener? Because I'm sitting here thinking I'm not a political analyst. I'm not an energy executive trading global oil futures.
Sure.
If they're sending out Russian oil lures to government officials, why should the average person, the everyday office worker dealing with local vendors, care about this specific 0-day? It sounds like a problem for the higher-ups.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the danger lies entirely in the concept of the payload we just discussed. The hackers have built an incredibly sophisticated delivery mechanism, this master key that bypasses antivirus and slips right out of the Adobe Reader sandbox. Right now, today, they're choosing to use that delivery mechanism to drop a payload targeted at energy executives for espionage.
Okay.
But the hackers control the remote server. They can update that payload at any given moment. A highly specific targeted weapon today can be flipped into a mass theft tool tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, the infrastructure for a massive, indiscriminate attack is already sitting right there in everyday inboxes. Once an exploit like this is out in the wild, other bad actors will inevitably reverse engineer it.
Trickle-down malware.
Precisely. What starts as a targeted geopolitical campaign very quickly trickles down to become a tool used for widespread financial fraud, ransomware, and identity theft against the general public.
Because the vulnerability is in the software we all use. The massive hole in the wall is there for everyone, regardless of who the original burglar was trying to rob.
The vulnerability exists in the core architecture of the most up-to-date versions of Adobe Reader, which millions upon millions of everyday people have installed on their machines right now. The weapon is loaded. It just depends on where they decide to point it next.
Given the severe, escalating nature of this threat, and the fact that a file that looks totally harmless right now could literally be updated to become a ransomware weapon by tomorrow morning, we need to pivot.
You do.
We need to talk about immediate practical survival tactics, because Adobe hasn't released a patch. The 0 day is still 0.
That is the most critical takeaway from Diego Macastrelan's report. There is no official fix from Adobe yet.
So what do we do?
Therefore, the immediate advice from the entire cybersecurity community is to adopt a stance of extreme skepticism. You must be hyper-vigilant about any PDF that arrives in your inbox unexpectedly, even if it looks like a routine invoice from a vendor you recognize or an important internal memo.
But practically speaking, we still have to do our jobs. People have to open PDFs to keep businesses running. So the report outlines a specific workaround, which is to use alternative PDF viewers or to just open your documents directly in a web browser like Chrome or Edge.
Because this specific exploit was custom-built to take advantage of the internal architecture and the specific sandbox of Adobe Reader, opening the file in a completely different program disrupts the attack chain.
Okay, that makes sense.
Web browsers have their own completely different security layers, distinct API structures, and their own unique sandboxes.
Wait, stop using Adobe entirely. That seems impossible for an office.
It's definitely a big ask.
It feels wild to just abandon standard software. It's like being told to avoid the main highway because there's a massive pothole, and instead everyone just has to off-road through a muddy field to get to work. I mean, it feels incredibly disruptive to just suddenly stop using the primary tool designed for the job.
It is absolutely disruptive. It's not ideal. But you have to view this as a temporary risk management strategy, not a permanent workflow change.
Okay, temporary.
Going back to your highway analogy, taking your vehicle off the highway and moving to the web browser means you're placing the PDF in a completely different digital cage. It's a sandbox that these specific hackers simply haven't built an escape route for yet.
So it's just a different lock on the door?
Exactly. It's not that web browsers are perfectly secure fortresses. It's that this particular lockpick was designed for Adobe's lock, and it simply doesn't fit the browser's lock. You're essentially buying yourself time, keeping yourself safe until Adobe can pave over the pothole on the main highway and release the official patch.
It's all about making yourself a harder target. Well, to recap our journey today, we started by dismantling the idea that PDFs are just harmless digital paper, realizing that they're actually complex, active programs capable of running code.
A huge paradigm shift.
Definitely. And we looked at the dark genius of the Invoice 540 trap and how it relies on our own daily routines and social engineering to bypass our mental defenses. We explored how the 0 day exploit cleverly uses Adobe's own trusted internal API tools to slip right out of its sandbox, rendering signature-based antivirus software completely useless.
Which is still terrifying.
Yeah, it really is. And finally, we highlighted the immediate critical need to switch to alternative PDF viewers or web browsers to protect yourself until a fix is deployed, because a master key targeted at executives today could easily be aimed at the rest of us tomorrow.
It really fundamentally changes how we interact with our digital environment. This 0 day exploit hid in the most boring file format imaginable. It makes you wonder, what other boring, everyday digital tools are you trusting blindly right now simply because they've been around forever?
That is the thought we'll leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, question everything in your inbox, and most importantly, keep your guard up in this constantly shifting digital world. Until next time, watch out for those invoices.